Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're diving into something I think we all struggle with,
Yeah.
at least from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
those pesky food cravings.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly,
Right.
how to make healthier choices when those cravings hit.
Yeah.
So we're going to be exploring
Yes.
the Inflowset method,
That's right.
which you sent us.
Mm-hmm.
So get ready for a deep dive into your own kitchen and habits.
That's right. We'll be exploring practical strategies to replace those unhealthy temptations with options that actually nourish your body. Understand the science behind why you crave what you crave and uncover techniques to help you feel fuller for longer.
Okay, I'm already intrigued.
So,
So let's jump right into this source. It points out something we probably all know but don't want to admit.
yeah.
We often eat out of habit, not actual hunger. That mindless snacking in front of the TV, guilty as charged.
Yes.
So how do we break free from that cycle?
Well, it all starts with awareness,
Okay.
recognizing those habits. From there, the key is to make smarter food swaps.
Yeah.
Instead of reaching for that bag of chips,
Right.
think about what your body truly needs.
Okay.
The right balance of macronutrients like protein, carbs, and fats.
So it's not about deprivation.
Exactly.
It's about making informed choices.
Exactly. And don't forget about those essential micronutrients like vitamins and minerals. It's about providing your body with the building blocks it needs to thrive.
The source gives some really tempting replacements. Swapping that processed cookie for a piece of dark chocolate, I can definitely get on board with that.
That's a great example. And by making these swaps, you can actually break free from that cycle of food addiction driven by dopamine spikes. You see, those highly processed foods can really hijack your brain's reward system.
Okay, dopamine. That's a word we hear a lot these days.
Yeah.
But I need you to break it down for me.
Sure.
How does dopamine actually play into these cravings?
Well, imagine dopamine as a messenger in your brain that signals pleasure and reward.
Okay.
Every time you eat something highly processed like that sugary donut, it releases a burst of dopamine,
Right.
making you feel good.
Okay.
But here's the catch. The more you repeat this, the less sensitive your brain becomes to those dopamine bursts.
So I need more and more of those unhealthy foods to get that same feeling of satisfaction.
Yeah,
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
it can be. It's a slippery slope where those cravings just get stronger and harder to resist. But understanding this dopamine connection is the first step in taking back control.
Okay, that's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
So how do we start recognizing those cravings in the moment and making a different choice? Any tips from the source?
Absolutely. The source actually suggests something quite interesting.
Okay.
Being mindful of what you watch
Oh.
and even what you think about when it comes to food.
Yep.
It specifically mentions that watching food shows can actually trigger cravings.
Wait, really? I've never thought about that before.
Hmm.
But it makes sense. Those cooking shows make everything look so delicious.
It's true. Those visual stimuli can activate the reward centers in our brain, just like actually eating the food. It's like a preview that sets the stage for those cravings to kick in.
So it's not just about being mindful of what we're putting in our mouths, but also what we're feeding our minds.
Precisely. It's all connected. Now let's shift gears a bit and explore another intriguing aspect of managing cravings.
Hey.
Timing our meals. The source has some interesting suggestions about when you eat rather than just what you eat.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this timing strategy.
The source suggests aiming for 2 healthy meals instead of the traditional 3 and finishing dinner earlier in the evening, ideally by 7 p.m.
I've always heard breakfast is the most important meal.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the science behind delaying it. Wouldn't that make you hungrier?
Not necessarily. This aligns with the concept of intermittent fasting, which has become increasingly popular in recent years.
Okay, intermittent fasting. I've heard the term, but always assumed it was some extreme diet trend.
It's not as extreme as it sounds. It's simply about strategically timing your meals to allow for longer periods of fasting. By extending that overnight fasting period, you give your body more time to digest, repair, and regulate its metabolic processes.
So I'm basically giving my digestive system a break.
Exactly.
Similar to how we need sleep to recharge our bodies.
Yeah.
Like that analogy. But what about those benefits you mentioned?
Well, intermittent fasting can lead to improved insulin sensitivity, which is crucial for regulating blood sugar levels.
Yeah.
It can also help with weight management and even reduce inflammation throughout the body.
That's pretty impressive for simply adjusting when you eat.
Yeah,
So it's not just about what you eat, but when you eat.
exactly. And the source also highlights the importance of nourishing your body with specific nutrients,
Okay.
particularly vitamin C. It suggests loading up on vitamin C-rich foods throughout the day.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I know vitamin C is good for immunity, but what's the connection to managing cravings?
Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant, which means it helps protect your cells from damage, but it also plays a key role in energy production. Think of it as combating that dreaded afternoon slump that often leads to unhealthy snacking.
So instead of reaching for that sugary pick-me-up, I should be reaching for an orange or a handful of berries.
Exactly. And don't forget about leafy greens, bell peppers, and even broccoli.
Right.
They're all packed with vitamin C.
So we're swapping out those processed snacks for vitamin C powerhouses. I'm starting to see how these small changes can add up to a big difference.
That's the spirit. Now let's dive into one more fascinating area that the source emphasizes.
Okay.
The power of a healthy gut.
The gut. I know it's important for digestion, but what does it have to do with cravings?
You might be surprised to learn that your gut plays a much bigger role in your overall health than you might think.
Okay.
It's often referred to as your second brain because it houses trillions of bacteria that influence everything from digestion to immunity and even mental health.
Wait, my gut has a brain. That's wild.
Yeah.
The source even calls it a fingerprint. What makes each person's gut so unique?
Think of your gut microbiome as a rainforest ecosystem. It's teeming with diverse species of bacteria, each with its own specific role to play. And just like a rainforest, a healthy gut thrives on diversity. The more diverse your gut microbiome, the better equipped it is to perform its many functions.
This is blowing my mind. I never thought of my gut as a complex ecosystem before. So how do we nurture this inner rainforest?
Well, this is where those food choices come in. The source specifically highlights the importance of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and Brussels sprouts.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of those veggies. But if they're that important for my gut, I'm willing to give them another try. What makes them so special?
Well, cruciferous vegetables are packed with fiber,
Okay.
which acts as food for the beneficial bacteria in our gut. Imagine it like this. You're feeding those little guys in your gut with every bite of broccoli, helping them flourish and create a thriving microbiome.
I love that analogy. I'm officially adding gut garden to my vocabulary.
A flourishing gut garden is key to so many aspects of our health. It helps regulate everything from nutrient absorption to immune responses, and even plays a role in managing those cravings we've been talking about.
So a healthy gut can actually help me resist that bag of chips.
It can certainly play a role. When your gut is healthy and balanced, you're less likely to experience those intense cravings that can derail your efforts to make healthier choices.
This is all starting to make sense. So it's not just about deprivation and willpower. It's about understanding the science behind our cravings and making choices that support our bodies from the inside out.
Exactly. And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore when it comes to conquering cravings and creating a healthier, more balanced relationship with food.
You know, as we're talking about this,
Yeah.
it occurs to me that our gut health is kind of like having a pet.
Okay.
We need to feed it the right things to keep it happy and thriving.
I like that analogy. And speaking of feeding our gut, the InflowFit method also delves into the importance of mindful eating. It's not just about what we eat,
Right.
but how we eat.
Okay. I'm all ears. What exactly does mindful eating entail?
Well, it's about being fully present during meals, savoring each bite, and paying attention to your body's hunger and fullness cues. Think of it as slowing down and really experiencing the act of nourishing yourself rather than just mindlessly shoveling food into your mouth.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap, especially in our fast-paced world.
Right.
We eat lunch at our desks,
Yeah,
scroll through our phones during dinner. I'm definitely guilty of that.
I think we all are.
So how do we become more mindful eaters?
Yeah.
Any practical tips from the source?
Absolutely. The source suggests creating a calm and inviting eating environment. Ditch the distractions, dim the lights, maybe even light a candle.
Okay.
It's about transforming mealtime into a ritual, a time to connect with yourself and your food.
I love that. It's about turning off the autopilot and tuning into what our bodies are telling us.
Exactly. And here's another simple but powerful tip.
Okay.
Chew your food thoroughly.
Okay, that seems pretty basic. How does chewing more thoroughly actually help?
Chewing breaks down your food into smaller particles, making it easier for your digestive system to do its job. It also allows you to savor the flavors and textures of your food, which enhances the whole eating experience. And believe it or not, chewing more thoroughly can even help with portion control.
Really? How does that work?
When you chew your food slowly and thoroughly, it gives your brain time to register that you're eating and to start sending those signals of fullness, so you're more likely to feel satisfied and less likely to overeat.
Okay, that's fascinating. I'm definitely going to try that.
Yeah.
Now, this source goes beyond just the what and how of eating.
Yeah.
It also talks about the importance of managing stress, particularly when it comes to digestion.
That's a crucial point. When we're stressed, our bodies go into fight or flight mode and digestion takes a backseat. The source suggests taking a few deep breaths before meals to help calm your nervous system and shift your body into rest and digest mode.
I've heard that anxiety can really mess with our digestion, but I never thought about using deep breathing as a tool for better digestion. That's a great takeaway.
It's a simple yet powerful technique. And speaking of simple but powerful,
Yes.
the source also emphasizes the importance of staying hydrated. It
Yeah.
seems like such a basic thing,
Right.
but it's essential for so many bodily functions, including digestion.
Yes. Water is life.
Right.
But I have a question about this.
Okay.
The source mentions drinking water in relation to meals,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not what you might expect.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests drinking a glass half an hour before or after eating rather than during. Why is that?
Drinking too much water while eating can actually dilute the stomach acid that's essential for breaking down food.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance.
So we're sipping strategically. I'm starting to feel like a hydration ninja. Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
That fascinating fact that our gut bacteria is as unique as a fingerprint.
It's true. Each person has a unique gut microbiome, and it's constantly evolving based on our diet, lifestyle, and environment.
It makes you realize that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition.
Right.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to how your body responds to different foods and to make adjustments as needed.
So it's about listening to our bodies and becoming more attuned to those individual needs.
Precisely. And remember, we're not just feeding ourselves.
Right.
We're feeding the trillions of bacteria that call our gut home.
Speaking of feeding those little guys,
Yes.
the source specifically recommends cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower for a thriving gut. What makes them so special?
Well, cruciferous vegetables are packed with fiber, which, as we mentioned earlier, acts as food for the good bacteria in our gut. A healthy and diverse gut microbiome is essential for proper digestion, nutrient absorption, and even immune function.
So those veggies are like superhero fuel for our gut garden. I'm getting a whole new appreciation for broccoli.
It's amazing how much power these foods have. And speaking of power, let's revisit the concept of dopamine and how it plays into those pesky cravings.
Yes, let's dig deeper into that dopamine connection. It's clearly a major player in our food choices.
Remember how we talked about processed foods triggering those dopamine surges?
Yes.
Well, those surges can create a cycle of dependence. It's like a roller coaster ride. You get that initial rush of pleasure,
Right.
but then you crash and crave more.
So the more processed foods we eat, the more our brains crave them. It's like we're getting hooked on those dopamine hits.
Exactly. And the source points out that even the thought of certain foods can trigger these cravings.
Oh, wow.
It mentions avoiding watching too many food programs because those visual stimuli can activate the reward centers in our brains.
It's like our brains are getting tricked into wanting those foods.
Yeah.
Even if our bodies don't actually need them.
Right.
So we need to be mindful of what we're feeding our minds as well as our bodies.
Precisely. And this is where mindful eating can be such a powerful tool. It's about becoming aware of those triggers and finding ways to manage them. Instead of mindlessly reaching for that bag of chips while watching TV, pause and ask yourself, am I really hungry or is this just a dopamine-driven craving?
That's a great strategy.
Yeah.
It's about interrupting that automatic response and making a conscious choice.
Exactly. It's about becoming more aware of our thoughts and behaviors around food. And here's another interesting insight from the source.
Okay.
It suggests incorporating more fermented foods into your diet.
Fermented foods.
Right.
Like sauerkraut and kimchi. I've heard they're good for gut health, but I've never really tried them.
Well, fermented foods are packed with probiotics, which are live bacteria that can help replenish and diversify your gut microbiome.
So they're like little reinforcements for our gut garden. I'm definitely going to explore some fermented food options.
I encourage you to do so. Now, as we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to emphasize that making sustainable changes takes time and effort.
Right.
It's not about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's about progress.
I love that reminder. It's about taking small steps and celebrating those victories along the way. What's been your biggest takeaway so far from the InflowFit method?
For me, it's the reminder that food is not the enemy.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our mindset from restriction and deprivation to nourishment and enjoyment.
I completely agree. And I think what's resonated most with me is the emphasis on mindfulness. It's not just about what we eat, but how we eat, why we eat, and even where we eat.
Mm.
It's a holistic approach to nourishing our bodies and minds. Welcome back to our final deep dive into the InflowFit method. I'm feeling energized and ready to put all this knowledge into action.
That's great to hear. And we've saved some of the most practical strategies for last spist. These are tips you can implement right away to help you make lasting changes.
Perfect, because I'm all about taking action. One thing that really stood out in this source is the emphasis on meal prepping. It seems so simple, but I've always struggled with it.
Yeah.
Any tips for making meal prepping more manageable?
Absolutely. Meal prepping doesn't have to be overwhelming. Start by choosing 1 or 2 days a week to dedicate to preparing your meals and snacks. The source suggests focusing on simple recipes that can be easily batch cooked. Think roasted vegetables, hearty soups, or green bowls.
That's a great idea. I get intimidated by those elaborate meal prep plans I see online. So start small and keep it simple.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative with leftovers. You can repurpose roasted chicken into salads or sandwiches, or turn leftover rice into a stir-fry.
It's like a culinary puzzle. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, the source also mentions using technology to make meal prepping easier.
Yes. There are some fantastic apps out there that can help you plan your meals, create grocery lists, and even track your nutrition. The source specifically recommends Mealime and Yumly.
Okay, those going straight onto my phone, technology to the rescue. Now, while we're talking about making things easier, the source had some clever tips for swapping out unhealthy staples with healthier alternatives. What are some of those simple swaps that can make a big difference?
One of the easiest swaps is to replace those refined packaged pastas with options made from lentils, chickpeas, or edamame beans. They're packed with protein and fiber, and they cook up just as easily.
I've seen those in the grocery store, but I always assumed they'd be bland or have a weird texture.
You might be surprised. They actually absorb flavors really well, and you can use them in all your favorite pasta dishes. Give them a try and see what you think.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Oh, but
What about other pantry staples? Are there any healthy swaps for those go-to convenience items?
absolutely. The source highlights the convenience and affordability of canned beans, lentils, fish, and vegetables. They're like pantry superheroes for quick and healthy meals.
It's all about having those healthy options readily available when hunger strikes. No excuses. But this source isn't just about what we eat.
Right.
It's also about shifting our mindset.
Yes.
It encourages us to rediscover the joy of cooking.
That's such an important point. Cooking doesn't have to be a chore. It can be a mindful and even therapeutic experience. The source suggests putting on some music involving loved ones and making it a fun and creative part of your routine.
I love that. It's about transforming cooking from a chore into a creative outlet. Maybe I'll even invite some friends over for a healthy cooking party.
That's a great idea. Sharing meals with loved ones is a wonderful way to connect and create healthy habits together.
And before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Dopamine and those pesky cravings. The source has some interesting insights into how we can manage those urges beyond just willpower.
One of the key strategies is to focus on the nutritional value of your food rather than just the calorie count.
Okay.
Those processed foods are often high in calories, but low in nutrients, which leaves you feeling unsatisfied and craving more.
So it's about choosing foods that nourish our bodies and minds, not just fill us up temporarily?
Exactly. And that's where those nutrient-dense, fire-rich foods we've been talking about come in. They provide sustained energy, keep you feeling full and satisfied, and help regulate those dopamine levels.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for conquering cravings and making healthier choices.
That's fantastic to hear. And remember, it's not about perfection.
Right.
It's about progress. Start by incorporating 1 or 2 of these strategies into your routine and see how they make you feel.
The InflowFit method focused on making changes within our own kitchens and habits. But what about the environments where we make food choices? How much do grocery store layouts, restaurant menus, or even social media influence our cravings and decisions?
That's a great point to ponder. We're constantly bombarded with messages about food, and it's easy to fall prey to those tempting marketing tactics. But by becoming more aware of those external influences, we can start to make more conscious choices that align with our health goals.
So as you navigate your own food journey, remember that you have the power to make choices that support your well-being. And hey, if you find yourself craving a piece of dark chocolate, remember, it's for science.
Always for science. Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those cravings in check.